Good morning, everybody. Well, mid-morning, I guess, at this point. So I'm Summer Nunn. I'm the VP of Marketing at Take 5 Oil Change. Really, I own end-to-end customer experience, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. This is Heather Turner. She is the Director of CRM within my team. So our goal today is to take you through our brand journey, which also forays into how we are leveraging data and a technology platform to enhance and personalize our communications with our customers. So a little background before we jump into it. We are also usually not a known company. We actually work for a portfolio company called Driven Brands. We are headquartered out of Charlotte, North Carolina. The best way to describe us is we own different automotive aftermarket brands. And we are up to 3,000 locations when you aggregate all of our brands together. So some of the ones you may have heard of are Meineke, which is in the repair and maintenance business, Mako, which is in the paint and collision if you've got a ding in your car and you need that fixed. We have another brand called CarStar, which if you're in the Midwest or been in Canada, they are also in the repair and maintenance. Our newest brand within the portfolio is Take 5 Oil Change. We made a concerted effort at Driven to get into the quick lube space around 2.5 years ago. So Rourke Capital owns Driven Brands, and their vision was to grow us and to grow us quickly, and that started with a brand new vertical for us. So we're going to literally change speeds in here, because the one thing that's very different about us versus the rest of the presentations thus far is we are a retail business that is direct to consumer. So we don't have fancy boxes up here. We actually are doing our tactile marketing right now is just a postcard with PFL. That's not to say we aren't getting ideas about how to change things, but we're going to talk you through the evolution of our brand and then how PFL came into the picture and the evolution of how we're using tactile marketing, which is not dead in direct to consumer to date. So really quick about Take 5 Oil Change. So this is our building. What is different about us is we are a drive-through oil change. How many people have ever used a drive-through oil change where you literally stay in your car? Not pull up and get out of your car, but okay, so very few. So there's a few competitors out there. Valvoline Instant Oil Change is our main competitor, but we literally entered this space to take them head on, to be perfectly honest. So we bought a brand out of the New Orleans area that had about 50 shops at the time. And their model was literally very simple. You pull up, you're greeted by a technician who talks to you about the process where you stay in your car. You look at their menu board, you pick what oil is best for your car based on your vehicle. So your vehicle kind of determines where you start. We carry Castrol Mobil 1, so we carry all brand name oil. This isn't like cheap oil that's going in your car. You pick your oil, you pull in, they change your oil. On average, it's 8 to 10 minutes, so it's a really quick process. And then you pay and you pull out and you go on. We always ask honk if you've had great service, so you'll a lot of times hear people honking when they leave our shops, which is really fun and exciting. So where we are very different from a lot of the industry is we are very focused on the customer and the simplicity of it. So we are just focused on the oil change. Most of you, if you think about automotive, you usually get anxiety because it's one of those necessary evils. You have to have a car to get you places. You have to take care of that car, but we're slightly better than the dentist is what I say. It's one of those things you kind of hate to do. You have to do, but you hate to spend money on it. And it's usually painful because you've got to get off work early or take time out of your weekend to do it. So we're trying to make that as simple as possible. When we got this brand, we did a lot of research on the path to purchase to understand how customers approach the category, because at the center of everything is taking care of the customer and the customer experience. So our brand tenets are fast, friendly, simple. We describe ourselves as the stay in your car, hassle-free oil change. And the reason we say stay in your car is a lot of times people think of drive-through, meaning you get out. We literally have to tell people to stay in their car most of the time so they fully understand the experience. So we spent a lot of time doing research around this to figure out what matters to the consumers and where we can be the most successful. So as we talked about, we're very focused on that customer experience. And one of the things that we measure is the actual customer experience in our shops. These are actually real reviews that have happened recently. And it is always your goal as a marketer to make sure whatever that experience is translates from the marketing into the shop and then through post-survey. So what's really exciting to us is that people talk exactly about how we want to be talked about. So they'll talk about us being fast, friendly. We a lot of times having our guys' names are mentioned or females' names are mentioned. But the other thing that we do while collecting information on the experience, Net Promoter Score is very much tied into things we do. And if you look at our Net Promoter Scores, it's way above industry average. We also collect data on our customers at a very detailed level in the shop. So we know everything about that customer that we can. We know everything about their vehicle. So we have the complication of not only you have the customer factor, but you also have the vehicle factor that you have to understand. And then we collect information on preferences. And the reason we do that is the more data that you have on consumers, the better you're going to be able to personalize how you communicate with them. So just to give you guys a sense of the scale of growth that we've had, we started down in the New Orleans area with 50 shops. As of this month, we have eclipsed 400 locations in the span of almost 3 years. We're not quite there yet. And the way we got there was through a series of acquisitions. So we purchased brands in Texas, Florida, Ohio, just purchased one in Wisconsin as well. But we've also built a lot of stores. So we've built over 90 shops ourselves. And then we've also launched franchising. So we now have 10 active franchisees that have bought a multi-unit license, which are heavily in the Carolinas and the South right now. So interesting enough, our most common vehicle is the F-150. We like big trucks. They have big oil tanks. And people tend to care about them. We credit Texas with this, but I've noticed in Montana, there are lots of trucks, and there's not a franchisee license sold. So if anybody in Montana is interested, I can talk you through the unit economics, which are really, really strong for this business. Just putting that out there since we're in Montana, because it's not on the map yet. So the challenge for us is this is really fast growth. And we are importing a lot of data from different acquisitions, as well as our own data. So the challenge for us from a marketing perspective was how do we leverage that data at the same time be able to scale at the same speed of our business. So here we go. The biggest thing that we are focused on is repetition. On average, you need an oil change 2 to 3 times a year, depending on how much you drive. So the core of our business is built on retention and getting the customer to come back. What drives a customer back in, number one, is the experience they have in our shop, which is why the brand position and measuring that experience in shop is so pivotal to what we do. But how do we, as the marketing team, layer in on top of that to make sure that we are driving as many cars back into the shops as possible? So in that path to purchase research, there are 4 things that generally trigger the oil change occasion for a consumer. One, the old school sticker that you all get during your oil change. So that's one, but to be honest, most people forget to look at it. The other one's the oil light in vehicles, which I will tell you, a lot of times those aren't accurate. If you want to talk to me about them later, they tend to be the longest interval, which is not really what's best for your car. Another big thing is road trips. So people preparing for road trips, it tends to trigger, oh yeah, if I'm going to drive a long distance, I probably should get my oil changed. And then the last one, which is the biggest category for consumers, is an actual reminder from a brand that they've interacted with. So we are going to focus today on the reminder program, and Heather's going to take you through how we are utilizing data and a tech platform now to make sure that we are personalizing, which has enhanced our performance. I will tell you to date, or year to date right now, that just our CRM program alone has added an incremental 6% in comps for us. And Heather's also going to talk to you about how we measure that. So not just straight ROI, but incremental ROI, which is a really, really strong return for us, considering we just re-platformed and launched a lot of these programs late last year.
There we go. Thanks, Summer. Whoa, the light is not so bright here in the middle. Let's see. All right. So as Summer mentioned, there are a number of different triggers that would entice someone to come back to get an oil change. And so we wanted to set up a multi-channel communication program with our CRM that includes email, direct mail, and soon-to-be text messaging. The email actually is the largest portion of our CRM program, and so if we have an email address, we communicate with folks that way. And we do about 26,000 emails a day on average that are going out for our reminders. If we do not have an email address for the customer, then they get dropped into the direct mail journey and stream. And so at the moment, we are printing on average about 3,000 daily postcards that we send out to our customers through our program here with PFL. And then we are getting ready to start a text messaging reminder program, and that's in its pilot phase right now. So, you know, we've heard many of you talk about your journeys and where you are with PFL, and it's really no different for us at Take 5. Summer mentioned that the brand was purchased about 2.5 years ago, and it's kind of funny because you gave me a sample here of what they used to be doing. They had, I think, pre-printed sheets that were perforated, and they would send them through the inkjet printer in the office and then tear them apart and process them and send them through the mail. And that was as early as 2017 when they were doing that, which is pretty crazy. And then when Summer came on board and established a new marketing team, got a little more professional with our design and our mailing, and we're starting to send out monthly mailers. And then when I came on board last year, we set up a cadence to do mailings every 2 weeks, and we started working with our data insights team to get a little smarter about that. And then at the same time, we were working to get all of our sub-brands that were purchased through acquisition up and running on the email platform that we had at the time too. And then we were working to get up and running on Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And we launched first with our email program right about this time last year in July, and are working with a CRM agency that's helping us with this. And that is actually how we found out about PFL and the ability to have that connection within the Salesforce module to be able to send our direct mails on a daily basis. So the file is going out constantly. And you can see when we started out there, we had a number of different creative artworks that we were using. And then when we talk about personalization and using our data for personalization, we really have these three kind of big buckets and categories. As Summer mentioned before, the vehicle. So when the customer comes in and we scan the VIN, we automatically know what the year, make, and model is and what the vehicle age is, and then hopefully the shop tech is recording what the customer's mileage is, so we have that in the record. Obviously, when the customer comes in, we're getting their contact information, and we do use a process with Axiom to be able to append address information if we don't have that, and some additional demographic details to our data. And we also break our customers into sort of that consumer category with retail, and then we also have a B2B audience for rideshare drivers, right? So if you're an Uber driver, you're probably driving more frequently than your regular retail customer. And then the same thing with fleet customers. And then also the NPS score. So we do send out a customer satisfaction survey after each visit, and hopefully we're able to gather some more information about what the customer thought about their experience. And then the final category is just information about our own business and our location. So with all of the different brands that we have, there are a number of different menu options with different oils and pricing that we have to keep track of. And then we have a whole separate database of all of our shop information, from the address, the phone number, special eCRM phone numbers we use for tracking, but also hours of operation that we need to be able to print on the mailers. We also include in our emails the name of the shop manager to personalize it. So all of that information about our locations. And then of course the most important is our point of sale transactional data. Obviously that comes in every day for new customers, but it's also historical information that goes back in time. So with all of that information kind of laid down, the next element is sort of that personalized timing. So when does someone need to get an oil change? And I know a couple of you raised your hand about going through a drive-through oil change, but how many people actually know what their vehicle's interval should be when you should get your oil changed? Oh, I see a couple of hands there. Excellent. The old adage was always like 3 months or 3,000 miles, whichever comes first, you go in and get your oil changed. But there have been so many advancements in oil and also in vehicle production as well too, that's not always the case. So with the sticker, unfortunately, even where we are today, the sticker that we put in the car is still based on that 3-month, 3,000 mile interval, because we haven't quite integrated in sort of the secret formula into what we're printing yet. But we worked with our internal data insights team to take those data elements that I mentioned before about the vehicle and the customer, to put that together to calculate a unique specific interval for every single customer that comes through based on driving habits. So, if you come in at least twice, we know what how many miles per day you're driving, what your mileage is, so we can kind of help calculate that. So every single day when our transactional data comes in, we're able to calculate what that customer's predicted interval is, and this becomes the basis for our communication. So when we set up our CRM program, obviously we started with email. We have 3 kind of linear channels here. And since email is a lot cheaper to send out, we obviously have more of an opportunity to communicate more emails with customers. And then our direct mail program, right now we just have 2 reminders that go out when that predicted date is that the customer is going to be due for their oil change. And then as we get ready to launch text message reminders, text is a little more invasive, so you want to be careful with how frequently you're sending out those messages. So we'll probably only send 2 messages there. And really, you only get the additional message if you don't come in. If you come in, you revert all the way back to the beginning, and you don't get all of these other communications because we consider you an active customer. And then if you come in, the next communication is going to be right before your next due date in email, or you get the reminder for direct mail. So once we got all of that set up and running, especially with our email program, we really wanted to optimize that and figure out if there were opportunities to cut across the email channel and the direct mail channel. And one of the categories that we took a look at to test was our bounced email customers. So if you're sending out emails and they're bouncing, then those people are not actually seeing your email anyway. So if they're not seeing the email, we might as well add them to the direct mail stream, because they're not, getting that communication from us. So that's what we started to do. We just dropped them into the direct mail journey, and whatever their predicted due date was, that's when they got reminder 1 or reminder 2, as the case may be. The second category were people who unsubscribed. Either they didn't want to get the emails anymore, or for whatever reason. And so we thought, well, we really do want to communicate with those people. So it's a large enough percentage of folks that we need to take a look at. But maybe we need to break it down into a couple of different subsegments to see how they respond. So that's where we took the behavior of the customer based on what their NPS score was and whether they said they liked us or not, right? So if we had that information, if they gave us a high NPS score, then we added them to the direct mail stream. If they didn't give us a high score, we didn't bother communicating with them again. They were probably done. So then the next bucket was, okay, well, not everybody fills out that customer satisfaction survey. So if we didn't have an NPS score for them, we broke it into a time period. So was the customer one of ours in the past year, or has it been more than a year that they've been in? And so we broke it down that way. And then the next category that we have started testing, and this is our most recent test, and there's probably many more options to test this, but along that email journey, if they're not responding, like how far out in the email journey do you get before you start to try and layer in another form of communication? So we started testing adding the direct mail if they were kind of late for their first oil change, or in advance of when we anticipated they would be due for their next oil change. And so far, we're seeing some pretty good results from that. So as you can see here, the bounced and unsubscribed customers just fall onto the direct mail journey at the exact same time the normal direct mail customer would be getting their reminder. And then the people who are not responding were a little bit later down the journey, but we're still sending them reminder 1, but just at a different time period. And so far, we have seen very positive results for all of these test buckets, except for the ones that were the lost customers that haven't been in, or the unsubscribed customers that hadn't been in for more than a year. So we only did that once, and we did not see great results, so we're not communicating with those folks anymore, and we'll probably come up with a different strategy for them. So the other element of personalization is the actual design and all of the different variations that we had. When we launched with PSL last October, I think we had 5 different brands, and 2 of them were undergoing conversion. So if a customer had been receiving communication from one brand, we needed to tell them that we were now Take 5. So there's different artwork there, and they get that for a certain period of time. And then since then, we've added 2 more brands to the portfolio, and then 2 additional brands have started to convert as well. So you take all of these combinations, and then we have different artwork. We have 2 different pieces of artwork for Reminder 1, and another one for Reminder 2. You could have anywhere from like 20 different variations of creative, static creative going at once. So with that, we thought, well, we really, really want these direct mail pieces to be a little bit more variable, so we don't have to manage all of this artwork and all of the different offers, and depending on what type of oil you bought last time. And so we created a whole new model that we're actually getting ready to launch with PFL that takes into account whatever the oil the customer purchased last time. So if you were a conventional customer and bought conventional oil, we could decide, do we want to give you a conventional coupon again, or do we want to try and upgrade you to the next level up? Or if you have a high mileage vehicle, do we want to tell you about high mileage oil? And then we can change all of the different percentages and amounts, and whether it's dollars off or percentage off, and time it with where they are on their interval. And then we would only have kind of 2 templates of artwork with 2 coupons or 1 coupon. And then we would still need the artwork for the different brands, but it would be all templatized, so to speak, and automated. So we're really excited about getting this up and launched with PFL in hopefully this week, right, Jordan? Yes, exactly. And we actually launched this model with our email program back in March, so we have seen some results coming in from that as well, and we're taking some of those learnings and putting them into the direct mail launch. So just briefly, this is just a summary of kind of how the flow of data works with PFL. Obviously, the customer comes into the shop, all of that information goes into our POS system, and then it's in our data lake, and that is where the data is then, where we calculate what that oil change interval is, and our agency that we work with helps us with the business logic to determine what offer the customer is going to get, and that goes into Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which then, of course, triggers the TMA and the PFL journeys that we have. And so one thing that we're getting ready to set up is 2 different work streams so that we can still do static artwork if we need to, but then we would also be able to do this dynamic artwork as well. And then, of course, in home and getting the mailing file back and then putting it into our KPI dashboard, which our agency helps us with Tableau also. And then the final kind of element of personalization that we haven't done yet for direct mail is around our different audiences. So we have military customers who are part of a program where they get a standard discount. We'd like to add that to direct mail. Or we have a community program with partners where you can get regular 10% off or $5 off, and want to be able to incorporate that in. Same thing with like ride share and fleet reminders. So that's going to be an opportunity for us in the future there. And so lessons learned when we think about this, one of the things is having access to your data, because if you don't have access to the data, this is not very easy to do. And we are very lucky to have a data insights team that is in-house, and they are actually separate from the IT team, which is also, in my opinion, a very good thing. But they have data scientists on their team. They put all of the data in the data lake. They work on the data hygiene. They make sure everything is organized in the same way, especially when we have these new brands brands coming on board. So if we have an acquisition and they organize their data one way, it doesn't feed into our system. So how does that get transitioned? And so making sure you have access to that information and can analyze the information is key and has been key for us. The second lesson learned is just the time that it takes up front in planning. And so you can have a great idea, but thinking through all of the different possibilities and the intricacies of it and how you can set up a platform that can move forward. And I think that kind of ties into the third lesson learned is we really wanted to create a program that was scalable and that it would allow us to kind of continue our test and learn environment. So how can we create a platform where we could make changes on a regular basis? We can change offers, we could change creative. And so you're setting it up kind of as an evergreen program, but you're still able to like turn the knobs and tweak it a little bit and optimize your program. And then the fourth thing is making sure that you are comparing apples to apples in your reporting. So one thing that we discovered when we switched to PFL is that our results started to decline. And we were like, oh no, what is going on here? And we dug into it a little bit more, and we realized that when we switched from our previous printer and the way that we were doing the reporting in-house versus when we switched to you all and we were doing the reporting with our CRM agency, they were not aligning the attribution period of the holdout group with the marketed group. And so that time period was different. So you have to make sure that you are comparing the apples to apples comparison there. So once we shifted that, everything looked a little bit more in alignment, which was wonderful. And I did forget to mention that earlier, the holdout group. I know Summer mentioned that from an incrementality standpoint, but for each one of the channels, we do keep back a holdout group, and we compare how they come into the shop versus those people who were marketed to. So the people who are in that holdout group, those are the people who would have come in anyway. You know, we're not communicating with them, they're gonna come in. How does our marketing perform over and beyond what the holdout group has done? And so that's how we are calculating that incrementality. And then the final takeaway there is, you know, once you set it up, the ongoing maintenance is pretty easy. It's just a data stream that's going in. But when you do start to make a change, just be prepared. As Jordan can attest to, we were proofing some of these yesterday and discovering things that needed to change. And we're like, oh, guess we can't launch today. We gotta go and fix that, and maybe we can launch tomorrow. But when you start to make a change, you're gonna have to take a look at what issues that's causing. But once you get it set up, you don't have to think about it as much until you're taking a look at the results and obviously see what additional kind of tweaks you can make. But that is the overview of our program, and I think we are not allowed to have people ask questions because of time. However, we did have folks last night when we were chatting about the fact that we were going to be up on stage and that we had to include jazz hands into the performance up here. So very good. But thank you very much.